Let's talk anime? Hello and welcome to Brandon's Discuss Anime, a Reckless Amoeba podcast, 15 plus. I am your host, Brandon Horvath, and with me are my co-host, Brandon Falinger.
Uh, yeah, I can definitely agree with you that maybe, just maybe, we might be changing somebody's sexual orientation here.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure about that.
I was gonna say maybe not. There's not a tsundere in this one.
Sundaries.
I was gonna say actually, hold on. Before I go any deeper in this, Brandon, did you watch or listen to the podcast on this?
I did not.
Okay, I just want to know, do you want me to bring that stuff up or no?
Briefly. Should we link the podcast in the
I would, yes, I would do that for sure. Because especially if we're going to start bringing stuff up from that. I forgot to mention this before, but we could separate that out into like a deep dive section. Because we haven't done a deep dive in a while.
Okay, we may go into a deep end sometime.
Yeah.
Yay. So stay tuned for that later in the week. And after enough delay, also with us, I still play.
Oh no, he's not here. He's dead. We killed him. Although we may have brought his spirit back.
Ryan, you're on.
I was ripping a piece of stromboli off. Sorry.
Hungry
Hi.
Man himself is here.
Yep. Hi.
So you know how they have like those Hungry Man meals? It's named after Orion. Orion's just, a hungry man, and they're like, we'll take him.
So,
That's exactly.
one piece of virus news, half relating to the podcast. I do see that Japan Post suspended all EMS to America.
Yeah, anime
wow.
in general is going to be delayed because of this.
So, we'll be digging into some classics, maybe.
Depends on how much of a problem this is. It's not like we're watching the cutting edge of anime currently anyway.
Yeah?
Like a lot of the stuff is stuff that's already out, and it's like, oh hey, that looks cool. I haven't had a chance to look at that. Let's do that next. Or it's like old stuff that we've looked at and have been like, yeah, I'd love to like rewatch this and talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Which means that any plans I have for a potential follow up to the noodle video might.
Yeah, and that stuff is definitely down.
And since I just posted the Umaibo video last week, the noodle video will be coming within like a week or two. Granted, we filmed it back in February.
Oh, perfect. They're going to see us all die. Well, all but one of
no.
us.
Yes.
One person does come out on top. I'm sorry, I'm spoiling here.
So, anything from you guys' side?
So jumping to video game shit, I finished Earthlock. That game is, I don't want to put it. I have to look into the developer for sure to say like with certainty about some of this stuff, but the systems are solid. There's a lot of what's the word I want to look for? Shit. When games or like even other things add things that make it so much easier to do things. Like it's not slice of life, but it's something like that. Fuck. I can't remember, but my point is there needs to be some additions to make things simpler. For instance, there is fast travel in the game, but you always have to go through the main hub. Like you always have to go through this island to then warp somewhere else. You can't just warp from point A to point B. You've always got to go to the island in between, which is really annoying. Otherwise, like the combat and the gameplay elements are really solid. I like that. There's a nice quality of life. That's the word I was looking for. That's the term. there isn't like a nice little option to speed up the animations between like turns because it's a JRPG. My biggest problem with that just comes down to like there's a lot of elements in that story that don't make a lot of sense, and that's just because they don't really expand upon it. Like, oh man, there were these things that were back in the past that were terrible called the Volvers, but you know we don't know why, and nobody ever says anything as to why they were awful, just that they were awful. There's points where it's like, oh man, this guy's a Volver that survived since like the whatever period or something like that. Whatever the event was, I guess that killed them or got rid of them. And it's like, how the fuck is that possible? How has there been one that's been alive this entire time and nobody's known about it? Never answered. And us, a bunch of tween-age heroes, maybe? I'm not really sure how old the one is. She acts older than the rest. But it's like, we solve the problems, and it's like, okay, why are you special exactly? Like, what makes you special? They only give like one thing, and it's about like the first character that you play as. His I think it's the first character, first or second. It's like his bloodline or whatever allows him to do stupid shit. And it's like, all right. You've also mentioned his parents before, and it doesn't make sense. Like they mention his parents and then they never bring it up again. Oh, your parents died trying to protect you.
So maybe some ancient spirits have been helping him.
Yeah, but they're never mentioned. Like that's the thing. Right? It's, oh man, your parents died trying to protect you. Cool. He says like the words "my parents" in question marks, and then it's like never brought up again, really. There's point, like he was raised by his uncle, who is, well, adoptive uncle is what I should say. And apparently his adoptive uncle knew a lot of shit that he never told him. Like there's a lot story-wise that leaves a lot of gaps that bother me. Again, mechanically, outside of some quality of life stuff, it's great. It's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I do wish that when you toggle on like full speed, it stays that way from battle to battle. It was annoying that I had to keep doing it during every single battle. Like toggle that on. Each of the characters has different abilities in the overworld, which is fun. Even though the last one you get is so late in the game, it feels like, what was the point? Because the last one you get is like, oh, you can move faster in the overworld now. It's like, I would have loved this from the get-go, because I feel so slow half the time.
Oh, and speaking about JRPGs, I've been half watching Vinny Vinesauce play through Final Fantasy VII, the remake. It looks pretty good.
I've heard a bit of spoilery stuff on that from a podcast. And apparently, I can tell you this right now, and I don't feel like it's a super big spoiler. It's not a one-for-one remake. There's a lot of new shit in there.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. A lot of stuff that has apparently been expanded upon, or just straight up is new scenes that were never there before. And then there's apparently what has been quoted to be like, has been dubbed the retcon ghosts. And apparently they stop the characters from doing anything that would not have happened in the previous game. Or force them to enact points where certain characters would have met up, but because of the way that they're doing things in this version of the game, they normally would not have met up. Those ghosts show up and force them to like go through those motions. Like it's weird.
Yeah, I think he may be, and I'm just judging this by averages, he may be like 20 hours-ish into it because I saw part 8 just dropped and I'm still midway through part 2 watching.
I plan on picking it up myself, but it's only on PS4.
One thing that I'm half excited about, Yuffie and Vincent, but mostly Yuffie, is a mandatory pickup now. Before they were optional side characters, but now they are mandatory.
I am next. Here's the thing. I want to pick up, because now that I know that there's differences, I want to pick up the original Final Fantasy VII on some system. I don't know if it's on Switch. If it is, I'm picking it up. If it's not, then I don't know where I'm going to find it outside of, fun things, let's just say. Sailing the high seas. Let's go with that.
You could also buy a PS1 and borrow it from me.
Where would I get a PS1?
Um,
I'd have to go to like eBay or like Second and Charles or something. Which, I don't know how trustworthy any of that stuff is right now.
Good point. So you may have to sail the high seas then.
Plus, I don't really want to buy a console just for one game, because I don't have any other PS1 games.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I have heard good things about it. I am super interested to check it out as soon as I get a PS4 or PS5, whichever one it ends up being at this point. I'm assuming PS5 right now, but we'll see how that goes once I start hearing like reviews and stuff for this thing.
Yeah, it's also going to be like $500 probably.
It depends. I've heard that they may potentially sell it at a loss just to keep in line with Xbox.
Okay.
So
yeah, didn't they do that before?
I think they were doing that before, but I forget for which system. I want to say PS3 maybe.
I am so relieved. Yes, yes, yes. Yuffie is not tsundere. Yes.
So you have one outlier out of like hundreds.
Shut up. Shut up.
What? Like, do you remember scatterplot diagrams from math? That's the one point that's out of place. And all of the other them are clustered in the same area. Oh, God. I know you really wish there was something you can nail me on right now for that shit. I know it. I can feel it.
Oh, and one interesting thing I've noticed. Are you familiar with the shape of the Buster Sword, like Cloud's main weapon?
Yeah, of course.
The two holes in it that I thought were just for style are actually the materia slots.
Yeah, people saw that. What was it? In one of the trailers, it showed it.
So I was kind of impressed that those actually have a purpose now.
Yeah, that's cool. Like having when like making a choice like that actively changes the character's model in some way, it always looks neat. Earthlock did that too, where it's like you equip them with a new weapon, or there are like costume changes you can get. It actively, literally changes the what they're wearing. Or in the one character's case, Taika, who was like a dog, depending on what bracelet he had equipped, he changed his like color to match the element of that bracelet.
Before we get into it, since we've been talking for a little bit longer than usual, Ryan, anything on your side?
I was gonna say he didn't get a chance.
Yeah, there's a show that just came out on Netflix called Midnight Gospel. Came out Sunday, I think, or Monday.
Why does that sound like fuck, what's that thing? That old monstery movie thing where it was like that lady that everybody really like had a thing for.
Oh, Elvira.
That's it. That's what it sounds like with that title.
It was like her show was like Midnight Spook or something like that. Midnight something, but the animator and creator of Adventure Time.
Oh, great. Okay.
And Duncan Trussell, who's a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically Duncan Trussell's podcast, but with characters just go about their day, like freaking, like having the conversation, but it's just really weird. Like the main character is an interdimensional being who goes to different galaxies that are upon like extinction, and he interviews somebody, and then they use that interview like from the audio of his podcast.
Yeah.
But it's really freaking funny. Definitely recommend watching it.
So, like I was saying in the beginning, anime?
It's definitely inspired by it.
And I believe it's done by Studio 4 Celsius, which I think we determined did a few visual novels.
Yeah, I forget exactly what we had actually discovered when we started looking into it.
But it is made. Oh, Taking Concrete.
Oh shit, they did that.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. I got some credit.
They did something from the Animatrix. They.
That I remember. I remember us seeing that.
That's about the only thing that I do recognize.
And there's a lot of other stuff that's in there that we just don't know about.
So, Ryan, you'll probably know what this is about instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Thundercats.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about
It's
the good
2011
one.
series.
the original.
No, the 2011 series, sir.
Oh.
And it got cut way too short.
Yeah, it got a single season, and from my understanding, it was more or less the fact that toy deals fell through that the series got canceled.
Toy deals.
What they need. That's the whole point of the show.
They had, like, from what the guy was saying on the podcast, the main art dude, what is it? Dan Norton, I think it was. I think his name is Dan Norton, if I remember right.
That name does sound familiar.
Yes, it's Dan Norton. Yep. So from what he was saying on the podcast, that kind of details the planned second season / finale season. From what he was saying, shit. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
Dan Norton.
Yes, Dan Norton, but prior, before I started looking up his name. Oh right. I remember now. They were getting like between 1 to 2 million views while it was airing, like individual viewers. The show was doing really well as far as like people watching, and yet toy deals fell through. So, well, sink it, which makes me sad.
So it was only planned for 2 seasons?
That was the plan. Whether or not they would have tried to expand it to 3, I'm not sure. But at the moment when they were planning it, it was 2 seasons.
Oh, and we'll be talking a little bit about the second season on the deep end that we mentioned earlier.
That's the plan. There'll be a little bit sprinkled in here near the end, but the deeper stuff will be in there, like the details. So, Orion, what do you think happens? Because I'm going to tell you this right now. They've kind of rewritten the Thundercats story in this.
I only know
They did a really good job.
I only know the characters, so I don't really know the actual story.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, they're all cat people in tights with like a handicapped dog cat.
I mean, yes, Snarf is super annoying in the original. He's not here, and there's a lot of secrets to Snarf that would have been revealed in season 2.
Oh man, is he a
And
stripper?
he's not as comic relief.
He doesn't talk. Don't
Oh,
worry,
wow.
Orion. He does not talk.
And
Okay.
there's much less spandex this time around.
Oh, it's so much less annoying. You don't hear the constant snarf, snarf all the time.
Fucking awful.
Although he's more of a team pet this time around.
Although he is still intelligent. Like, you can tell him what to do and he will follow it. Like, he is smart like a Pokemon is smart.
Okay.
Which reminds me, jumping from Pokemon to Digimon, Amamura's T-Rex form, like a damn Digimon.
A little bit, now that you mention it. I hadn't really thought about it, but you're not wrong. Although I don't think he was, it's a form for him. I think he literally possessed it.
Ah.
Because you see the crow flying out of it, and the body's still there. I think he was possessing that thing.
Okay, but I was watching it and I'm like, I wonder if Brandon's getting Digimon vibes too.
Not until you've mentioned it, but definitely yes.
more like some dark form of Agumon evolution.
Yeah, so something like Skull Greymon related. But yeah, so here's how this series goes, right? We basically find out that the Thundercats live in a city called Thundera. So unlike the original series, Thundera is not a planet. It is their city, their nation, their kingdom, if you will. And they are very much well, let's just say they're not exactly kind rulers. Lizards are like lizards specifically seem to be enslaved by them to the point where like they catch them stealing and they throw them in the stocks so that way they can be just like beaten and harassed and attacked. Lion-O is there. He does not have his fireball hair, which out of all the things I had, that was the only thing I had art-wise a problem with when I first saw this. Lion-O's hair looks like spiky anime hero protagonist hair, not his like fireball mane, which kind of disappointed me. But I've grown to like it, more as I've watched it. Also, here's the fun part. Lion-O's dad, who is the current king at the time, has the original Lion-O's voice.
Oh, cool.
So these guys that did this really loved Thundercats growing up. They were super big fans of the show and were more than happy to throw in whatever fan service they could throw in.
And one thing that I found good about this, besides the art and the story, they have some pretty A-grade voice actors in on.
Oh yeah. Like the twins, Wily Kit and Wily Cat, literally voiced by children, and those children do a goddamn amazing job.
Will Friedle, who voiced Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond, does Lion-O.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's like a more upbeat Terry McGinnis.
And just half doing a little sidestep into more Will-related stuff, he also voiced Deadpool in a Spider-Man cartoon.
Oh, cool.
So just imagine hyper Deadpool, but with a slight edge of Terry McGinnis. Oh, but
shit. And I'm trying to remember because Panthro, who played him?
Kevin Michael
Richardson, who was fucking shit.
The
who
Joker in the Batman.
Yeah, he was also someone else. Let me see here. Who else did he play? He played a few characters that I remembered. He was Gantu in Lilo and Stitch. He was the fucking whale alien.
Wow, I'm looking at his Wikipedia and he has so many voices to his name.
He's been on The Simpsons quite a few times. Let's see here. What else does he have? He's got a lot of shit in here. He was in Tangled.
Jabba the Hutt.
Ah, there you go. He was Trigon in Teen Titans.
So A-grade voice actors here.
Some really solid ones, yes. There were some really good choices in here. Freaking So we get to see literally the downfall of Thundera as Groon, one of the prior Thundercats, comes back from searching for the Book of Omens, betrays them having discovered Mum-Ra and joined his side.
Oh, man.
So
also,
what exactly is Mum-Ra?
I was about to say, they discussed that in the podcast. Here's what I can tell you. All right, Mum-Ra is his own being. He is not a species of anything else. I can give this away. He was literally a thing created by his masters, the evil spirits or whatever that he follows.
The ancient spirits of
That's
evil.
It. Yes, he was literally created by them.
That's why I dropped the ancient spirits line back during...
Oh shit, that's right. I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, I was hoping you would pick it up, but
nope.
No.
Nope, I was blind. But yes. So betrayal happens. Lion-O literally sees his father killed. Also, Tigra in this is his adopted brother.
Were they at all related in the original?
Not at all.
Okay.
At least not that I'm aware, but I'm 99% sure not at all. They were just, other characters that were, Thundercats. That's it. We find out, actually, in this one, I don't know if this is actually from the original or not, but Chitara's speed is literally something that is trained into her by the clerics of Thundera, which means Jaga, our pseudo sage man. We have super advanced technology in this, which the Thundercats had no idea what the heck that shit was when they were getting invaded by it, including lizard mechs. We have lizard mechs. We got some Zoids up in here, boys. Where the lizards pilot this thing and they got like fucking Gundam shoulder cannons mounted on them. You see the first 2 episodes and it's like, oh, cool, fantasy fun. And then, nope, we got us some fucking mechs.
Who needs technology when we live in Thundera? Blah, blah.
Fucking technology's a myth. That shit isn't real. Yeah, it's knocking down our door right now, though. Also, Lion-O was one that was like interested in it, and he had this one guy, I forget what his name is. He comes back later in an episode, but Jorma. His name is Jorma. He dabbles in technology. He roots around outside of Thundera and finds some stuff, and Lion-O's super into it. And it isn't until like the invasion starts happening with what is literally a Trojan horse. It's not until that happens that Lion-O actually realizes how the technology works. And that something that he bought earlier on is quite literally a landmine.
Mm.
I remember when this first came out, one of the first things that happened was literally the fact that like it was a double. It was an hour-long premiere because the first 2 episodes are a 2-parter.
Half-hour episodes?
Yes, half-hour episodes.
Okay.
26 half-hour episodes in 2011 to 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Since there was a small, like, 4-month gap, 5-month gap between the first 13 and the second 13.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we learned Chitara's speed is from the clerics and that she is a cleric, and she was apparently following Lion-O around, like to be essentially like not a spy, but like a bodyguard without him knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Let's also say that there's a lot of like potential romance, I would say. Some love triangle shit going on. Like once things start falling out of hand between her, Lion-O and Tigra, there's a lot of good shit. So long story short, Thundera falls. Lion-O, along with Tigra and Chitara, go to leave the ruins of Thundera behind. Wily Kit and Cat were scavenging what was left. They were apparently just like orphans in the street, just pickpocketing and shit. They meet up with those 2 and are like, hey, look, we want to go to this place called Eldara. It's like a city of gold where we can have all the riches we could ever want. We get an awesome backstory with them, by the way, as to why they want to do that.
A lot of the characters had really, really good backstories.
Oh, dude, you don't even know. They talk about what the fuck Eldara was going to be in that podcast. God damn.
Oh my god, I should really listen to the podcast.
It is a 3-hour podcast / interview, so you've got a bit of a time on your hands to go ahead and see that.
Yeah, but we'll be talking about it a little.
We'll get to it. Yeah, they want to go there, and then Lion-O's pissed off, and he's all like, "No, we can't watch kids when we're doing this." And then it's like, well, we can't really leave them here, Lion-O. And I think that was Tigra's line or something like that. And then they do the whole kid thing of like, oh, we're not following you. You're just walking in front of us and shit. And they kind of tag along in that way.
I also found it a little bit cute how they acted like they were actual cats back at the
little kittens. Yep, little kittens.
Mew, 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 come on.
You look adorable, right? You should totally let us with you.
I'm surprised they didn't do like the cat eye stare.
Oh, they did that later, didn't they? Like when they were being told, like, "Hey, you got to go out and get food. You got to survive." They tried that.
Mm.
We also find out here's a fun thing, right? So you know how kids get hyper whenever they eat sugar? These two get that way when they find a thing called candy fruit.
Oh, the candy fruit.
They literally hair stands on end, eyes are just buzzed as shit, and they are hyper. It is hilarious. They're talking at like high speed. It's great. I love it. Oh my god. So they start going on their adventures. The first thing we find is essentially Captain Ahab, but they're koi like fish people. And they're hunting down like this giant kraken plant that siphoned up all the water in their ocean.
And a lot
The hell?
of plots, from what I read, are like retellings slash revamp of the 80s series.
Yes, a lot of them are. We get like the plant people. Oh, fuck, I forget what they're called, but we get an entire episode of them living their life in a single day, and we follow like the one character that Lionel kind of like bonds with, all the way up to the point where they die.
So this is also kind of on the serious side of the show.
Oh, according to the guy on the podcast, Dan Norton, it was written more geared towards adults than it was for kids. I'm sure they had to tone stuff down because it was like a child time slot, but they were writing it more toward the adult end of the spectrum.
Then why not have this on Adult Swim?
Because Adult Swim didn't want to get it. Didn't want to take it. Also, I don't know if Adult Swim would be able to because of copyright.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think Cartoon Network might own the rights to Thundercats, and as such, I don't think they'd be. And I think Adult Swim is technically its own thing. So I'm not quite sure how that would pan out exactly. Like I know if I recall correctly, when they were talking about bringing back Samurai Jack, there had to be discussions made about, transferring over stuff to Adult Swim. Pretty sure, if I'm remembering right, unless Gendy owned Samurai Jack from the start. I'm not sure. But yeah, it was definitely written more toward like, the older range, like, 13, I would say 12, 13.
So did you watch any of the original Thundercats, Ryan?
Yeah. I don't recall anything like important happening. I just remember watching and not really paying attention.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it in reruns, but I don't really remember any of it.
It's the same, because I think if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of the shows, a lot of the episodes were just like Monster of the Week or Mumra's Plan of the Week.
Mm-hmm.
I know there were some major story beats in there, but a lot of it was just episodic. They also, and this is the interesting part, so when Mumra starts looking for new generals, aside from Slive, our lizard commander or general, they go for like the monkey and the jackal, which, as weird as it is to say, were originally called Monkey Man or Monkeyan or something like that, and like Jackalmen. In this, they actually gave them names and personalities. We have Atticus and Kanar.
Which is good!
And Kanar is quite literally insane.
I love Kanar. He is amazing.
He wants nothing but chaos. He just wants to see you know that line from Batman where it's like, some men just want to see the world burn. Kanar is that dude. Kanar just wants everything on fire. Everything needs to be on fire all the time. Like to the point where he's talking about
flames.
He's literally talking about eating the children.
Oh, Mama won't notice if they go missing.
Oh, come on, not even just a nibble. I won't miss some toes. Like it's great to see that. So here's something that I don't remember ever being in the original. They have what is essentially a fucking power gauntlet.
Infinity Gauntlet.
That's it. Infinity Gauntlet. Yep. Before any of that shit happened. Back in 2011, we had Thundercats with an Infinity Gauntlet. Except with 3 stones in the gauntlet, 1 in the sword.
Well, technically, I think the original Infinity Stone storyline was from the 80s.
Oh, it totally was. I mean, before the movies. Thundercats was like, hey, we're going to take that idea and just roll with it on our own side. But yeah, each stone has its own ability. And like, there's a point where we get fucking armored mechs to the point where like, here's the cool bit. All right. So do you want to know what the hell they were calling like the armored up Lion-O that we saw in like the flashbacks to when all the animals and shit first got to Third Earth?
The armor of omens.
Nope. You're thinking too in depth, sir.
What?
They called him Iron-O.
Iron-O?
Yes, Iron-O.
Okay.
Because he has like he's quite literally, it's like a lion themed suit like Iron Man.
And I know it's O, the letter, but OH, like anglicized Japanese, does mean God. I'm 95% sure. So technically, Lion-O is Lion God.
Hey, look, man. I don't know if the people that created this even had that idea in their heads. Oh, I remember the fucking plant people now. The Petlars. That's what they were called.
They have the robot bears.
Yeah, they have the Burbles, the robot bears that are very good at building and not good for much else. Who hunt down the guy that's been literally trying to capture them and sell them into slavery. And the Thundercats help out with that. The Burbles help rebuild the Thunder Tank, which Panthro shows up in at one point, just having.
And
which
also give Panthro these tiny stubby arms.
Well, here's the thing, right? We're skipping a bit here. So there's a point where we see like an elephant village, which is just a bunch of monks basically meditating on shit. And, you know, they have the joke of like, oh man, elephants never forget. Except these elephants always forget. Man, we're going to break the mold with this one. But they do it so endearingly. It's so nice. Yeah, they the elephants have a stone, but it's not in the physical plane. It's actually stowed away in what is known as the spirit plane, or the astral plane. Sorry. They have to get it, but they don't know how. And like during the episodes, Lion-O's starting to realize how to use sight beyond sight. We did skip over the point where he got the Book of Omens and had a big old fight with Mum-Ra and entered the book.
Mm-hmm.
And met with Jaga's soul inside the book, which had been helping them point the way to like Mum-Ra's army to where the book was. Believe it or not, Ryan, there's a lot of story here.
There is a lot of story in these 26 episodes.
Yeah. Well, you know, here's the one thing I do want to mention. And this felt more in the fight. I felt it more in the fight with Mum-Ra when they were fighting over the Book of Omens. It felt like there were portions of the animation that were cut out. Now, maybe it was just me. I blinked and I missed it. But there were points where it's like, all right, we're having this fight. Lion-O is on the ground. You know, Mum-Ra standing over him. And then we cut back to Lion-O and he's already like stood up and has his sword coming down on Mum-Ra again. And it's like, I feel like there was an action scene missing of him getting up. Like it feels like there was more animation there than they had the time to fit in, and they had to drop some of it.
Maybe in the DVD there's like extended episode cuts?
I wouldn't be surprised. And in fact, I'm almost tempted to go and buy a set of the full series because it's so fucking good. and it's hard to fucking get any goddamn material on this shit. But yes. Anyway, getting back to like the bearables and shit. Getting back to the Elephant Village. So Groon is there. Panthro and him are fighting. Turns out Panthro and Groon were together when they were first searching for the Book of Omens. And when Groon discovered Mum-Ra, he betrayed Panthro and pretty much left him for dead. So Panthro is basically like, look, the defeat of my enemy is worth anything. That's something you used to say, Groon. Well, when Lion-O and Tigra come back after getting the stone, the astral plane that it was hidden on starts collapsing and creates like a little mini black hole where the portal is. And it's sucking them in. Well, Panthro essentially lets Groon get sucked in at the cost of the portal severing his arms.
Oh, shit.
And that's when we go back to the Bearable Village, and they apply bearable arms to him, which are fucking tiny furry nubs basically to him. And then there's a point where they give him actually good looking arms, and then they just go batshit out of control that need to be tweaked still.
So that's like a whole episode of them.
Well, it's that, and while the other cats are like off doing their own thing. I forget exactly what they were doing at that point. Oh, they were making raids on like the lizard army. And basically like trying to get them to turn against Mum-Ra by like showing them, look, we're stronger than you, we can take you out, and this really isn't your fight. During this point, we learn about Chitara and Tigra's backstory, where Tigra apparently helped her get into the clerics by giving her a flower that, unbeknownst to him, had what is it? I forget what it was called, but it basically, the saying goes, it has like a day of life in every petal. And every time Chitara would eat the petal, it would allow her to like give her enough nutrients to survive another day. Because while she was fast, she wasn't wise enough in using her speed. So Jugga's all like, nah, man, you can't join. You're not smart enough about this. You're not wise enough in your actions. So she's literally left outside the temple door to sit there and wait. And so she shows patience by waiting there for, I don't even know how long. At the very least, more than 5 days, because she had like 5 petals on that flower. And it's like after she's about to like literally die, that Jog is like, all right, you've shown some patience. You're allowed in. But yeah, we get that little backstory, and apparently the entire time, Chitara's had eyes for Tigra, not so much Lion-O, even though there's been like cheek smooches and shit going on. Needless to say, that drives a little wedge in between things. And we start moving on to like them dealing with that shit. Lion-O being full of himself and trying to do shit on his own. Lion-O literally dying and then coming back to life. Actually, during that episode was really interesting, in that everyone thinks Lion-O's dead except for Wily Kit. They get captured. Slive has the sword, but Lion-O still has the gauntlet with the first stone lodged in it yet. They try to find the body. They can't find the body. They leave, taking the Thundercats and the sword with them. Wily Kit, they eventually do get away, but Wily Kit in the meantime is leaving markers saying that, like, look, Lion-O will come. We need to leave these markers so he can follow us. And everybody else is like, he's gone. He's dead. Like, what do you want? Meanwhile, Kit's still believing in him. But they need to go and track down Mum-Ra and Slive because they still have the sword, even though the cats themselves escaped. Lion-O, in the meantime, is going through these like spiritual and like fucking these different trials to like earn back his life, to earn his second chance. Because the stone apparently is deciding to give him that option. Which,
okay.
Here's an interesting bit. It kind of means that the stones have some kind of sentience.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder about a lot of things in that regard now. But by the end of it, Lion-O does come back to life. He tracks them down using Wily Kit's markers that she left behind, which are like little cartoon drawings of her face. In the meantime, Tigra, who this entire series has kind of been like, I should have been king, I'm better than you, Lion-O, has literally gotten them captured. But still, won't admit that he's wrong. Like, he admits it, but he won't admit it to Lion-O's face. Anyway, they get out of there, fight Momra, get the sword back, blah, 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 on to the next episode. There is a lot more that goes on in here. I'm trying to think of like all the other ones. Brandon, do you remember ones that I'm like skipping out on here that are important to get to that I'm blanking on?
Not that I can remember. I do remember like the final arc where they meet Pumaira.
Oh, that's right. Well, first, let me put this one out first. We do meet up at one point with Tigra's original family, his clan. So what originally happened was that all of the animals that are on Third Earth were originally basically slaves to Mum-Ra. Mum-Ra used the cats as basically his guards and shit. And they were like the higher ranking officers, whereas everyone else was just used as slaves and had like detonation collars on. Think like what are they called? Think like Suicide Squad and like those collars that explode if they disobey.
Mhm.
That's basically it. The cats, after realizing that, like, at least some of them anyway, after realizing that once Mum-Ra gets all of these stones, which he's been taking from different planets across the galaxy or the universe, one of the two, is going to be literally impossible to stop and just completely insane, decide like, look, we need to stop him. So they forge their own sword out of the same material that Mum-Ra did his, steal the final stone, which is the Eye of Thundera, and take him down, meanwhile stealing the stones that he had previously gathered. The ship, he eventually seals himself inside like his coffin thing. They destroy any chance of him getting out of there without outside help, and crash the entire spaceship that they're on onto Third Earth. After that, all of the animals spread out, take what's left, like take the land for themselves, and they do split up the 4 stones to different clans of animals. Tigra's clan, the Tiger clan, decided to still follow Mum-Ra through till the end, and as such were annexed from Thundera. They were left out of that stuff. They found their own place up in like mountainous snow-covered caves. So Tigra was born during a time when a very, very lethal disease was sweeping through the Tiger clan. The Tigers still worship the same gods that Mum-Ra did, the ancient spirits of evil. They prayed for a way to solve it, and as a result, Tigra's father got the option of, look, you kill your son, we save your people. And as an act of good faith, they saved the people first. Until Tigra's dad couldn't follow through and sent his son off in what was essentially a hot air balloon, hopefully to land in Thundera. And once the ancient spirits realized what had happened, they brought the disease back, killed all the cats, all the tigers, and cursed them into basically demonic unliving. Like during the day, they stayed the way they were, but during the night, they became demonic monsters. So Tigra eventually does find out about this, that he gets to meet his father, gets like the special whip that you see in the original series. He gets a new whip that is identical to that one, unlike the old whip, which was just kind of a regular whip. And after they solve the problem, his father's just like, look, we've been dead for a long time, but I never thought I'd get the chance to meet you again. Like, he breaks the curse of pride with forgiveness by apologizing, or not apologizing, but by forgiving his father. It breaks their curse, and they can like finally actually die for real this time.
And going back to Panther for a minute, do you know if he did have cybernetic arms?
No. As far as I'm aware, he never had cybernetic arms.
And I think Panther may be the best character in the series.
He's the straight man in most of it. It's great. Because everyone else has their own weird quirks. Panther's just the straight man. It's even better because, like, near the end of the episode, we find out he's actually afraid of heights and he can't swim.
Oh.
Like, he's got his own problems, but, like, goddamn, is he good when he needs to be good. So we do get to meet up with Pumaira, who is apparently in, like, the fucking Greek fighting, or the Roman fighting pits. Pumaira being, like, a female Thunderian, a female Thundercat. Eventually, Lion-O frees her by becoming part of the entertainment and joining into the pit fights. He by basically showing mutual loyalty by neither of them killing each other, even though Pumaira kind of hates his fucking guts for abandoning their people. They basically say, look, we're not going to kill each other, and since it was a good show of loyalty to dogs, cough cough, dogs and loyalty, they're like, look, not only dogs can show loyalty, apparently cats can too. You're both free to go. So they both get out. They go into a mine to find Mum-Ra's original sword, the Sword of Plundar, and get that out, only to realize that the sword basically gives them away, and they need to separate. So they all leave. Oh wait, we did have we had rat people, not mouse people. Wow, I'm dumb. Yeah, it was rat people that were, like, trying to dig out the sword. But yeah, the Sword of Plundar is kind of like a beacon to Mum-Ra to find at this point, now that it's been, like, released from its sealing, which Jaga had done way back in the past. Mum-Ra, shock of all shocks, gets the sword, but is still defeated by Lion-O in the end. But he still got his prize, even if he didn't take out the Thundercats. Then we get to the Bird City, which is literally a city floating in the sky. We get a big old, oh man, we're going to get the birds to trust us. And then the main bird, Voltaire, realizes, oh shit, Mum-Ra's here, and he's way stronger than us, and the cats probably don't got shit. So I'm going to turn sides. Mum-Ra then gets into the city. The stone that they were looking for is literally what's allowing the city to fly in the sky. So if they take the stone, the city plummets to the ground. Well, the fight gets so bad that basically Lion-O and Pumaira fall back to try and, like, guard the stone so that Mum-Ra can't get it. So in the meantime, as everything's happening, Pumaira gets knocked out. Lion-O and Mum-Ra are fighting to the point where eventually Mum-Ra's like, fuck it, I'll take the stone. I don't care if this city plummets and dies. Grabs the stone, or tries to. It keeps getting knocked around as he and Lion-O are fighting each other. Pumaira wakes up, grabs the stone, throws it to Mum-Ra. Turns out she's been a double agent this whole time, because Lion-O walked away from the first episode and she died watching him walk away underneath rubble. She ain't happy. Turns out she's been a ghost this entire time because Mum-Ra resurrected her soul. He says something along the lines of, like, her hatred and anger called out to me, and I pulled her from the fucking, like, from whatever place souls go to.
And shock of all shocks, she was evil in the original series too.
So Mum-Ra and Pumaira leave, taking the bird's tech stone, it was called, with them. Lion-O and everyone else is left there to try and, like, land this falling city, which they eventually do, and end their series on a high note of having, like, to help fight off Mum-Ra, brought together all of the previous people they had helped save throughout the entirety of the series so far.
There's just, like, a bunch of dudes that this guy killed. and they all attack him at the end.
Mumra leaves. Mumra like flies away
Okay.
because if you remember right, Mumra's got wings. So he flies away on his big bat demon wings, carrying Pumaira with him. Because it's like, hey, look, I know when the odds are against me. I got what I came here for anyway. You may not be dead. You may still have the 2 other stones, but I've got this one now. And then he leaves. He flies off with them, and they have to land the city. So there's a bit of hope at the end of that, and that right there is your season finale, by the way. Is we've just landed this flying bird city, but we've managed to bring together a good chunk of the animals as like an army now.
Which is kind of good, but I'm like, this is not how it ends.
Oh, you're right. You're totally right. It is a good season finale. It is a god-awful series finale.
Yeah.
And here's a bit of an interesting bit. There would have been a time skip between season 1 and 2.
Like you were saying, about 2 years.
I think it was actually planned to be like 3 or 4. Like from what the guy in the podcast, Dan Norton, was saying, Lionel would have been more buffed up and looked a little closer to his original self from the 80s. A fuller mane. He'd be much more buff for having kept fighting for those last few years. The Kit and Kat would have looked like teenagers, like young teenagers at that point. Because I'm assuming, I don't know for sure if they actually have an age there, but I think Kit and Kat were like 10 or so, I want to say 10 or 11 at that point. Whereas like, say, Lionel was probably close to like maybe 14, 15. And Tiger was probably like 2 years or so older than him based on the flashback we saw at one point. Yeah, there would have been a time skip there. And there would have also been a time skip between the first 13 of season 2 and the second 13 of season 2.
Oh.
Which I find super interesting because a double time skip in a single season seems real weird. But the way it was laid out made some sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how deep we want to go into that without waiting until the deep end bit.
Yeah.
I love this series. It is constantly and consistently painful for me to always remember that this didn't get a second season. It was really good, and it should have. By all estimates, it should have. They had the viewers, and because toy deals fell through, they didn't get it. And I remember, like, from what he was saying on the podcast, there was a lot of shit about, like, oh man, they threw the book at us, or they're like, oh man, people don't like story-based series and all this other shit when they were first starting. And the 1 million to 2 million viewers each time an episode aired kind of shut him up in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty much free to go. There was a lot of interesting stuff coming in season 2. A lot of interesting shit. Eldara would have shown up. We would have gotten like Wily Kit and Kat. Lionel would have found his queen. We would have known what happens to Pumaira in the end. Yeah, it would have been so good.
Any other questions, Ryan?
Not really.
I know, it's kind of like a mad jumble of
shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The art is amazing in this. It is really cool artwork. I would highly recommend checking out Dan Norton art on DeviantArt. That's the dude's actual like DeviantArt page. He's got a lot of the concept art listed through that too, like for the series listed on there.
Okay.
You can take a look at some of that stuff. It's deeper down because he did that interview back in 2018, and he's like, "Oh man, I should pull that stuff out." So he started posting them later on. But like, some of the shit that he has in here is super interesting. Let's see here. Let me just pull one. Here we go. Let's do this one. Here. I'll send this one along. You can see the Chitara concept art.
Oh, that one outfit seems reminiscent of her 80s.
Yeah, there's definitely some in there that were like trying to keep that idea in there and also redesign it at the same time. He's got a lot of that in there. He's got a lot of like the concept art for some of the like the robots and the tech and some of the other stuff. Some of the other random characters, even some unused ones are in here. Oh, we forgot to mention Tookit. Like the fucking master thief who has literally a bag of holding. And the secret password to use that bag of holding is the name of the studio that made the original Thundercats. Rockin' Boss, I think it was.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting like concept art in here and some cool shit to see. But yeah.
So, if you're not a furry by now, you might be by the end of the next episode.
It'd be true.
Oh boy, I can't wait. Although I heard it's a really good series.
It's very good from what I understand. And it gets even better in what will eventually be a season 2 for that one.
Yeah, so look forward to it when we get to it. So
it's more recent too. Yay! We're not traveling backwards in time for this one. Well, maybe a little bit. A couple of months.
Yeah, I think it was one of the most recently released as of this episode.
It's true.
Yeah, so if anybody has nothing else to say, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We are doing Cave Story at the moment. I believe we are at the point of Monster X.
Mm-hmm.
Your good friend Monster X, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we are currently playing through The Witness on our Twitch streams every Tuesday.
Yes. We are playing through The Witness. It's a thing. Our brains hurt because puzzles.
Be sure to check out any food podcasts and movie makers that may come along, and our D&D podcast that is yet to be named, coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess self-promoting over. I guess that's it. So until we talk anime again later.
Thundercats HO.
Oh, one last thing. As they were sneaking around the bird village, I just loved the very calm Thundercats HO.
No. So, Panther is just sitting there like, no, kid, don't you fucking, don't say it. Don't you say Thundercats. No. Ho. Oh, Panther the straight man. I love it.